What's good, sports gamers? It's your boy Rio West. You tuning in to Rio West Gaming. I mentioned a couple videos ago, might even be longer than a couple videos ago, but back when I did the video about Madden's draft editor being a joke, I mentioned in that video that my draft class for the most part, or at least my first draft class for the most part, is complete. And I needed to go make some modifications to it due to the fact that EA's draft editor or process or whatever it is, when you upload it into your franchise, is all messed up. I mentioned how it put profane names or labeled certain names as profane names, which I didn't understand why it labeled them as profane names. But I'm going to mention in this video why it's that much more of a joke towards the end of the video, or probably somewhere near the middle of the video. But I mentioned in that video that my class was done, and once I was done making these modifications due to what EA made me do, then I would go ahead and finally do a video about my draft class and explain my process of making this draft class. So before we get into it, real quick, if you're here for the first time or you're returning and you haven't liked or subscribed already, please do so. Click that notification tab so you can stay up to speed with all Madden 25 content, whether it be franchise, rebuild, tutorials, tips, tricks, draft class, etc. We have it here. So without further ado, let's get into it. So what you're looking at right now is my draft class, my first draft class. And before I get into what exactly I did for this draft class, let me explain my prior draft classes. Now, on my original channel, Rio West TV, was where I was posting draft classes, my draft class content, before I actually created my Rio West Gaming page. Now, I've been doing draft classes before they gave you the option to even edit a draft class. When basically in our online league, what I would do is after the draft was done, I would go in before we advanced to preseason or whatever, and I would edit each rookie that each team drafted to who they were supposed to be. So I've been editing classes ever since then. And then when they enabled us the ability to be able to actually edit the draft class, I've been doing it ever since then as well. Well, my process when doing those draft classes were, I had reference websites like the Walter Football website. I also used ESPN for draft classes later on down the line. So basically my method before is I would use the Walter Football website for the first draft, because the Walter Football website is going to have the mock draft or the top prospects for each position on that website. And I would take those prospects, I would look up the player, and I would edit those each individuals at each position. And so the first draft class was always going to be the best draft class because I had the mock draft and I followed this website and I did everything I was supposed to. And for the most part, I edited all players' accessories and everything. But after year one, after the first draft class, you don't really have a reference point to a mock draft for draft class 2 or draft class 3 or anything like that. So basically what I would do for those following draft classes were, I would say, for instance, the quarterback in a random generated draft class is from BYU, for instance. Well, I would go to ESPN, I would go to BYU, and I would find a quarterback that would be like a senior or a junior on the roster at that time, and I would edit that player to that person. So that's how I would do my draft classes after year one. I would go off of what the CPU generated. I would go find that team and pick a player from that position and put them in there. So it wasn't always the most accurate, as into players that were projected to come out that year. It was more or less giving the user an ability to have a draft class with real players every year. And for us in our online league, that worked for us. That worked for us because every year we always had real players that were playing college ball. We had the real players in our league. And this was more designed to be beneficial to my online league. and I happen to upload these classes if people like those, like my method of creating a draft class. But nevertheless, every year I've always had the best draft class the first year because I always went off of my reference website and I always made sure the players were in the correct positions, had the correct numbers and attributes and accessories and all of that. But this year I did it different. This year is much different, and I could thank College Football 25 for that. Now, initially when College Football 25 first came out, I got excited because I was like, I no longer have to create draft classes because I'll be able to export and import. Well, then they announced that you can't export and import to Madden, which almost made me not get college football, but I'm glad I ended up getting college football anyways, because that video game itself actually made my channel take off. So shout out to all the people who've been supporting me since College Football 25 came out anyways. But when I decided I was going to go ahead and get it, it was for two reasons. It was one, for content purposes, and two, I figured that I could use College Football 25 as a template to create my draft classes on Madden. And that's exactly what I did, and that's exactly what you're looking at here. So my method in creating each draft class on here is going to be totally different from what I did in the past. Now it's a mirror image of the players leaving in each year of my dynasty mode. So if you've been following my dynasty mode, my FAU dynasty mode, these classes are specifically coming from that dynasty. So this isn't going to be the most up to date with all of the new players that were added in College Football 25, because of course I started my FAU dynasty right when College Football 25 came out. So this is based specifically off of the rosters, the original rosters from the release date in my dynasty. So if you've been keeping up with my dynasty and you've seen some of the teams that I've been playing, seen some of the players that's been in a run-in for Heisman or best quarterback, all of that stuff, that's where these guys are coming from. So if you keep up with that dynasty, then you'll know who these players are. Or if you had a dynasty of your own since the game first came out, then you're going to know who these players are that are coming out because you kept up with all of these players. So this first class is from the first year of my dynasty, and I'm just going to go through and I'm going to show you. Now, again, it's not as detailed as my prior draft classes in Madden, because now I have a reference point to each player to edit, and before I only edited a certain amount of players. So like I only edited what the players were on the mock draft. So if I ran out of players at that position, then I didn't edit any more players on that position. So majority of the time, my draft classes were about 300 to 325 players that were edited based off of the Walter Football website that I was referencing. Versus now, this draft class, I edited every single player, all 450 players in this draft class. So with me spending all that time editing all of those players, I didn't necessarily go through and edit all accessories. So I got the faces as accurate as I could based off of the profile picture on college football. So basically I looked at the profile picture on college football. I tried to find a face as close to it as possible. Madden is very limited. They give you the same faces every year. So you have to scrape and claw to find the correct faces and try not to have as many duplicates as possible. But it's extremely hard because you got a ton of players that got dreads, but Madden is extremely limited on the players with dreads or the faces with dreads that they have. So of course a lot of players are going to have similar faces, but it is what it is. That's what Madden give us. They won't let us be able to manipulate the faces, or they won't even give us a bunch of it. I don't understand why they won't just do like college football did and use AI to generate a ton of faces, but whatever. It is what it is. So, but because I did 450 players, I didn't do everybody's accessories. I did a lot of top players' accessories, but I'll also leave it open because the people in my online league, they edit the accessories themselves anyways. So I'm about to go into it and show you some of the players that are in this class so you can have an idea of what's going on and what I produced in here. So we're going to go with the quarterback position. So as you can see, The top quarterback from year one was Caden Salter from Liberty. Then you got Jalen Milroe, Shador Sanders, Carson Beck, Jalen Daniels from Kansas, Dylan Gabriel, Jackson Dart. And again, like I said, when I edited these players, I edited them based off of their overall rating and who left. So if a player had a higher overall rating than another player and they both left at the same time, well, then that's how they were created. They were created in that order. So it's not necessarily based off of who had the best year or who was in the Heisman race or any of that. It's based off of overall. Again, if this ain't your cup of tea or whatever, then that's fine. If you want to download it and manipulate it, you can, by all means. There's no reason. I won't get mad if you download my class, manipulate it, edit it, re-upload it. That's fine. But I did all this specifically, more or less specifically for my online league. And I've never had an issue with anybody in my online league having a problem with my draft classes. So as you see at the running back position, we got Judkins, Gordon 2, Jaden Ott. We have Omarion Hampton, Donovan Edwards, Travion Henderson, Devin Neal, Ashton Genty, which I know what you're thinking. Why is Ashton Genty all the way at the bottom? Again, this is from when the game first came out. So this is based off of that. Taj Brooks, Texas Tech, Nicholas Singleton. You see it. All of these players are in College Football 25. And this came, like I said, this came from my year one of my dynasty. And yeah, every single player is in here. The only position where it's not is left tackle, and it's because in order to view these players at each position or whatever, I had to do a video scrolling through all these players and send it to myself so I have a template to follow and copy off of. But for year one, unfortunately, I stopped too short at the left tackle position. So there's probably like 5 or 6 left tackles that are generic, but to get around that, I just edited them down to like a 40-something overall. So they won't even be a part of the game. Once we advance, the game will get rid of them because they won't be a part of the game. But those are the only players that didn't get edited. So you could say 445 players got edited. So, but you can see we even did the fullbacks. And yeah, you can see we went all the way through. T-Mac, Presley, Luther Burden the third, Travis Hunter, Abuka, Torrey Horton. You know, they're all there. They're all there. And if you have College Football 25, then you know who all of these players are. And you know that they're in the game. And like I said, I went through and I edited every single point. And to get to the part where I was speaking about where I didn't upload this video sooner because I had players I had to go back and edit. So I finally sat down and re-edited the players that Madden flagged as having profane names. And it's actually even crazier or even more of a joke than it was before. So there was actually 17 players that I had to go in there and re-edit their names and everything like that. But they flagged them for profane names. So I'm thinking in my head that I have to go in there and edit them to a different player because their name was profane. But the first player I went to was I think his name's Jarquez Hunter for Auburn. And I'm like, why would Jarquez be flagged as profane? So I went to put his name back in just to see, and they let me put his name back to Jarquez, which I was like, why would they flag it as profane and then let me put it back as Jarquez? So then I started going back and re-editing some of the other players whose names were changed. And all of these players, they let me put their names back except for I think 3 or 4 players. And all 3 of those players, their last name happened to be Cox, which I understand why they would do that like that, because even though there are players like Jabril Cox who are in the league that have that name, they know that people would probably put something derogatory, use it as derogatory in the game. So I could see that. But these other guys who had like Jordan, there was a guy named Jordan that I had to re-edit. They flagged Jordan as profane, and there's nothing profane about it, and they let me re-edit it back. So there were quite a few players like that. Like I said, there were 17 players that I had to re-edit. Only about 4 of them I had to change them to a different player because of their name. But the other 13, I was able to put their name back. And as a matter of fact, I'm going to show you one right now. I'm going to go to fullback. So this guy right here for BYU, Mason Fakahua, they flagged both his first and his last name as profane. And as you can see, I was able to go back and put him back to Mason Fakahua. And then say, where is Hunter? Okay, so here it is. Jarquez Hunter. They flagged his first name as profane. And as you can see, they let me put his name back. Now, the trick part about this, or the crazy part about this, is that so I re-edited these guys' names and I changed some of these guys to different players, and I re-exported it as a different file so I can upload it. So I was like, now that I'm on an online league and I re-edit it, surely once I re-edit these guys and then save it, they won't flag it again. So I went back and I created another online league and I uploaded that class, and they flagged these guys again. So unfortunately, anybody who downloads this draft class, those players, those 17 players, or at least 13, the 13 that they let me put the names back, you're not going to get those players. You're going to have to re-edit those players yourself. So all I'd say is, if you're downloading this draft class and you're using this draft class, you find those players and then go on College Football 25, find the school where they came from and just re-edit their name, and they'll let you take the name. But that just goes to show how much of a joke EA is as far as like the customization aspect, the editing of the draft class aspect, because they're flagging these names as profane. And then when you go to upload them, well, once you upload them, they're flagging these names as profane. But when you go to re-edit them and put the name back in, they let the name be accepted. So I don't understand it. I don't get it. But this is my draft class, and that was my method. Like I said, I'm going straight off of College Football 25, and this is my first class. I'm working on my second class now as we speak from year 2 of my Florida Atlantic Dynasty. And yeah, so that's about it. Again, I appreciate you guys as always for tuning in. If you like this draft class, it's not going to be out there yet, as we're still in the middle of our season, but our season is coming up soon, or coming to an end soon. Then we'll be in off season. Once we actually draft is when I'll make this draft class available to the public. Why? I know you're asking, why would I wait so long to do that? Because I don't need nobody in the league downloading this draft class and looking at the draft class to see these overall ratings and kind of getting the inside scoop on who they need to draft, who's what, who's who, and all that. So I do this every year. I wait till after we actually have our draft, and then I upload the draft class. So just stay tuned. My draft class will be available real soon, probably within the next week or two. Because if you follow my Raiders Rebuild franchise, I'm actually a little further ahead in real life than I am actually posting. I'm re-editing my content and vocals and everything like that. But we're further along in real life than we are in my content that I post. So the draft will be within about a week or two. So stay tuned. I will be uploading this to the community. Just look for Rio West and look for FAU Dynasty Class 1, something like that. It'll be something along those lines. But again, I appreciate you all for tuning in. Again, if you're here for the first time or you're returning and you haven't liked or subscribed yet, please do so. Click that notification tab so you can stay up to speed with all Madden 25 content, more franchise rebuild content, more draft class content, tutorials, tips, tricks, etc. We got it all. So again, I appreciate you all. That's been my time. Till next time.